我在18岁挣到200块钱的时候，我就意识到打工是永远没有出路的。
When I was 18 years old, I earned 200 yuan, and at that moment, I realized that working a job was not a way out. During my university years, I attended a wedding, and the opportunity to host this event was recommended to me by a classmate. When I arrived at the venue, I overheard some guests discussing the wedding's expenses, which shockingly totaled over 600,000 yuan. The decorations, flowers, and various setups were stunning, with just one table's meal cost exceeding 5,000 yuan. I thought to myself that if I wanted to host a wedding worth 600,000 yuan, I would need to host at least over 3,000 similar weddings to gather that amount. After the wedding, the newlyweds were very satisfied with my performance, and specifically told me that the 1,000 yuan spent was well worth it. In fact, my classmate earned 800 yuan and left me with 200 yuan. This experience made me realize that if you master resources, you can earn 600,000 yuan just by introducing weddings, even if you don't host them. Nevertheless, I firmly chose to enter the broadcasting industry and became a host because I love this field. Although I knew the industry's prospects were not optimistic, I also opened my own noodle shop. Returning to the topic of 600,000 yuan, I thought at that time that if I opened a noodle shop, it would take at least a year to achieve such revenue. However, now my shop is doing well, and people might question the authenticity of these figures, thinking it's impossible. I warmly welcome everyone to come to my shop and observe every transaction. During university, I audited a lecture on political economics, where the lecturer explained the nature of wages in simple and understandable terms. The main purpose of wages is to ensure the basic survival of workers and their families while helping capitalists create more surplus value. Therefore, if you plan to achieve a class leap through wages, it is nearly impossible. Whether in the future you are forced to work or choose entrepreneurship, you can only find a glimmer of survival in such an environment through continuous learning and self-improvement. I will not miss any opportunity to better myself, and I will continue to work hard and move forward.
打工人真的有出路吗？
Where exactly is the way out for laborers? As a laborer myself, I feel very lost right now. At this stage, I can only work for others, but in the future, I want to start my own business and become my own boss. The problem is, how do I find that stepping stone for the transition? I have no money on hand, and if I want to make 200,000 yuan, it will take me at least 4 or 5 years. I'm very worried that if one day I encounter health problems, medical expenses could easily cost 200,000 or 300,000 yuan, and wouldn't that mean spending all the hard-earned money from several years in one go? Isn't that just a waste of effort? In fact, what more people are lacking is the startup capital. Otherwise, who would want to go to a factory every day and do 12-hour shifts in such a high-intensity job? Every day is exhausting. Working overtime almost breaks people down, especially in those electronics factories. Summer heat makes you dizzy, and in winter, the cold bites into your bones. No one cares how you're doing, and all the hardships must be silently endured by yourself. All the grievances must be slowly digested by yourself. What can you do after being scolded by your boss? You can only swallow your pride because you're here to make money. What right do you have to talk back?
打工，你打个毛线的工，你打了几十年的工，你打了个啥？
You've been working for so many years, but what exactly have you achieved? Have you worked yourself into a car loan, a mortgage, or just a collection of various illnesses and occupational diseases? You've spent all your precious youth on working, yet the boss doesn't even give you a glance. If he doesn't like you, he might even throw a few insults your way, and you wouldn't dare say a word. The supervisor watches you work like he's watching a thief. If you slack off, the boss has an excuse to give you trouble. If you work hard, the supervisor might give you a slight raise, making it seem fair on the surface, but in reality it's just exploitation. Not only that, but some colleagues who don't like you often make things difficult for you. Every day in the freezing winter, as soon as the alarm rings at the crack of dawn, you have to get up immediately, not even having time for breakfast, rushing to the factory to clock in on time to avoid the late penalty. Every day, you live in humiliation, barely scraping by. And when they need you, they will squeeze everything out of you, painting grand illusions for you to fantasize about. But once you are no longer of use, they will heartlessly kick you aside, treating you like garbage. Brothers, listen to me. A man must have the idea of starting his own business, What if you succeed? Working for others will only trap you in a vicious cycle of poverty. Even though you might be very poor now, if you don't dare to take the risk of starting a business, you're destined to struggle in poverty for the rest of your life. Think about it. After a whole year of working, what have you really earned?
我发现上班没有意义呢，是因为我当年当社畜的时候，有一天突然
I find that working is meaningless. It was during my vacation years ago when suddenly a thought flashed through my mind one day. I tried to simulate the possibilities for future developments. After completing the simulation, I was completely stunned, realizing that working for most people is almost worthless. Today, I plan to present that simulation from back then, as it remains applicable even now. First, it's important to emphasize that if your goal is to pursue wealth and a free life, then working in a job is almost meaningless. Of course, some people might not have such high aspirations and can live quite well working a regular job. This is understandable. After all, everyone has different pursuits, and there doesn't need to be a unified answer. Additionally, there are indeed those who excel in the workplace, suitable for striving within a system, becoming what is termed a worker emperor. However, it's worth noting that the workplace is like a pyramid. The higher you go, the fewer people succeed. Such examples are ultimately rare. Now let's get into the specifics of the simulation. Suppose you are an academic achiever, ranking at the top with an impressive resume that might even shock people when they see it. This type of person typically enters high-end industries, such as research, management consulting, finance, or high-level data analysis, all high-paying positions. In this case, although you can earn quite a bit of money, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions, what is the cost? You end up so busy that you have no time to rest. When companies offer you a high salary, they naturally expect to extract more value from you. The end result is that while you earn money, your health deteriorates and you have no personal time. So, what's the point of working so hard? Therefore, for those seeking freedom and wealth, such jobs have little meaning. Of course, I understand this is the dream job for many, but the price is indeed the loss of freedom and health. Next, in another scenario, if you are an ordinary person, you are likely to become a cog in the machine at your company. The biggest problem with being a cog is that you are easily replaceable, and the career crisis at age 35 is almost unavoidable. The reason is simple. As a company operator, if there are younger employees who require lower salaries and have fewer personal issues, they will inevitably replace older employees. After all, the core goal of a company is profit, not to provide a retirement home for employees. So, ordinary people working hard in companies, if your replaceability is high, often end up being eliminated, just like tea leaves being dumped out. That's the inevitable result driven by profit. Knowing this yet continuing to push through only leads you to the predicament of being boiled alive in warm water. In the last scenario, if you have weaker overall abilities, your position in the workplace becomes even more precarious. You will become a more mechanized and easily replaceable cog, facing fiercer competition for positions, and the crisis arrives even sooner. This type of work is not only brutally competitive but also, in the long run, serves no meaningful purpose, leaving you in a vulnerable state in old age. Thus, my conclusion from the simulation is, regardless of how strong your abilities are, if you hope to have both wealth and freedom, then working at a company will not help you achieve this goal. I know some small business owners who earn tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands annually. They may not have outstanding educational backgrounds, but they have persisted in a specific vertical field for a long time, building a loyal customer base. Although they are busy, their time is relatively flexible. They can work intensively for a period and then take a break, having time for gatherings or hiking. Their life state is actually much better than that of those high-salaried, busy white-collar workers. In summary, after my simulation back then, I realized that working is of little significance for the vast majority of people. Ultimately, ordinary individuals must possess a skill that can support them long-term, selling their abilities directly to the market rather than through an intermediary company. Understanding this, we should focus on our ultimate goals and work towards them daily. That is a meaningful life.
我打工打了20年。
In the past 20 years, I have been working hard, always yearning to achieve something, to gain recognition from others, to let my parents enjoy their later years in peace. I wanted my child to have a happy childhood and to bring happiness to my wife. However, despite working hard for 20 years, I have not been able to achieve these goals. No matter how hard I tried, all I could do in the end was to meet their basic needs. When I turned 38, I realized the gap between myself and the people around me was growing wider. Every time I returned home and saw my father, who is over 60 years old, still doing hard physical labor on a construction site, I knew in my heart that my life needed a complete replanning. At this age, I can't afford to lose anymore, and I must pick myself up. Since I don't have good speaking skills, I'll practice. Since I don't know how to sell, I'll set up a stall to learn. Since I have fallen so far behind my peers, I must do everything I can to catch up, running as fast as I can. If I don't work hard and fight, my later years will be as ordinary as my father's. During the more than 3 years of running my shop, I have worked almost non-stop day and night, giving it my all. During this time, I have been recording my tough entrepreneurial journey every day. I hope that my sharing can be helpful to everyone, and I hope you can also bravely pursue your own dreams.
刚刚去面试了一份月薪5000的工作。
A few minutes ago, I just went for an interview for a job with a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. Unexpectedly, I was directly rejected because of my age. Walking out of the company gate, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. 5 years ago, my base salary was still 30,000 yuan per month, and now I can't even find anyone willing to hire me for a 5,000 yuan job. I am about to turn 40, a typical post-80s, a working person who has fought hard from the countryside to a first-tier city. Some say, at 30, one establishes themselves. At 40, one has no doubts. But my experience is quite the opposite. Nearing 40, I am more confused than ever before, unsure of how to move forward, and feeling like I have become a burden to my family and friends. I once worked as a head of business development in a foreign company, with an annual salary of 500,000 yuan. During that time, I was busy every day, attending endless meetings, preparing endless PowerPoint presentations, and dealing with various team evaluations. On the surface, it seemed glamorous, but only I knew how much pressure the job brought. If I failed to meet performance targets, I could be fired by the company at any time, and working there was like walking on thin ice. In pursuit of a better future, I made a bold decision during the pandemic, to quit and start my own business. Although the initial vision was beautiful, it didn't last long. Due to my limited abilities and insufficient understanding, by 2023, I couldn't hold on anymore. I had to close the store, lay off employees, and declare the failure of my business. Now that I'm re-entering the workforce, I can't even secure a job with a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. I know very well that my previous job in the foreign company was probably the ceiling of my career. Now, as I approach 40, I can't compete with young people, such as driving for Didi. The job options are getting fewer and fewer, and I can't even compete for a security guard position with the older men guarding the gates. But to be honest, from a career perspective alone, my past performance wasn't too bad. After all, I've worked for more than 10 years and have saved some money. However, in a moment of rashness, I chose to start a business during the pandemic. When the company was struggling the most, I took out all my savings and my housing provident fund to pay the employees' salaries. At the moment of my business's failure, the millions of yuan I had worked so hard to save, along with more than 200,000 yuan in my housing provident fund, all vanished into thin air. Perhaps over 1 million yuan is nothing to the rich, but to me, it was the result of over 10 years of hard work. Plus, I came from the countryside, with no rich background to support me. Who would have thought that I could lose everything and return to square one in such a short time? So, do I regret starting a business? Actually, I don't. During the entrepreneurial process, I learned a lot, and it made me more mature mentally. Although I haven't had any income in the past few years, this experience has taught me how to face difficulties and failures. By rights, at my age, I should be successful in my career and have a happy family. But the reality is that my life has hit rock bottom. The reason I am sharing these embarrassing experiences is not to seek sympathy, but to inspire and push myself to move forward. I am very clear that I have no support to rely on, and I can only depend on myself. I have no way out, so I must become more resilient and keep moving forward.
打工，你一年连10万都赚不到。
Imagine if you had to rely solely on a job to make a living, and you couldn't even earn 100,000 yuan a year. Suppose your monthly salary is 8,000 yuan, with an annual income of around 90,000 yuan. But in fact, this monthly salary of 8,000 yuan is already considered relatively high in many cities. However, after deducting daily living expenses and various costs, you may only have about 3,000 yuan left in savings each month. In other words, even if you earn 8,000 yuan per month, your annual savings would still be less than 100,000 yuan. Now, consider the various needs in real life, such as marriage, buying a car, buying a house, saving for a betrothal gift, dating, etc. These expenses would be around 1.5 million yuan at the very least. If your family doesn't provide any financial support, then with a monthly salary of 8,000 yuan, it's difficult enough to cover your living expenses, let alone save enough to buy a house or a car. Even if you save every penny and spend nothing, it would take you at least 15 years of work without eating or drinking just to save 1.5 million yuan. Women don't need to save money. They can directly ask men for betrothal gifts, a car and a house. But brother, you are a man. If you work a job that pays 8,000 yuan a month, after deducting all expenses, you may end up with only 3,000 yuan in savings each month. So, what are you going to do for the rest of your life?
If you have been working in the job market for many years and realize that you don't want to work for money for the rest of your life, and you hope to live a freer life, then you might want to listen to the insights I'm about to share. I hope they will be helpful to you. First of all, don't fantasize about getting rich overnight. No one can teach you how to get rich quickly, because such things usually come with high risks and may even get you into legal trouble. So remember, wealth needs to be accumulated gradually, and impatience won't get you anywhere. The most important thing is that you must have a certain financial foundation. How do you start? Actually, the first step is getting a job. Don't rush to refute me. Although working may seem like an ordinary choice, it is the crucial first step for the majority of people to break free from working for others. Except for those born into wealthy families, most successful entrepreneurs and business people started by working for someone else. So, why should you work first? And how can you work effectively? Here are some tips. No matter whether you join a big company or a small company, whether you have a degree or not, the most important thing is to develop two abilities at work: observation and learning. Many people enter a company and only know how to work hard, turning themselves into a tool for the company, busy all day without thinking. If this is the case, you might remain an ordinary employee forever. Those who really make money often pay attention to the company's core competitiveness, business model, how their superiors work, and how resources are allocated within the company. For example, I have a friend who worked in a company for 5 years. While working, he learned how his boss communicated with people, how to place ads, and how to find resources. 5 years later, he quit and started his own advertising company, using those resources to earn a lot of money. That's the smart way to do it. Also, if you have the idea of starting a business, I suggest you join a startup company instead of a traditional big corporation or state-owned enterprise. In a big company, especially a state-owned one, you might just be a small cog in the machine, unable to access the company's core resources. In a startup, however, you have the opportunity to deeply understand how a business operates and gain the basic skills needed to run a company. Especially in a sales position, you can accumulate a lot of customer resources. This experience will be very helpful for your future entrepreneurial journey. Thirdly, you must have a clear plan before starting your own business. Don't act on impulse and quit your job hastily to start a business. Before finding a good project or direction, I suggest that you work while starting your business on the side. This way, even if your business fails, you still have your salary to support your life. In fact, the successful entrepreneurs I know all worked at a company until their own business was on track before they quit. If you can do this, your chances of success will be much higher than others. For example, I have a friend who works in a state-owned enterprise. He works from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and after dinner, he goes back to his own company to continue working. His employees usually start working in the afternoon and finish around 11 p.m. As long as his company doesn't grow big enough, he won't quit his job easily, because the resources of the state-owned enterprise are also very helpful to his business. Through this approach, his monthly income reaches hundreds of thousands of yuan. Therefore, a side business is very important, and developing your side business into your main business is the key to your success. Do you agree with my points? Feel free to leave your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us, and we will continue to provide you with better content. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.